Welcome to the Brake Check Show on the Texas Truck Channel. Behind me I have the all-new BRZ, I'm sorry, this is a Toyota. The 86.
GR.
That's right. The Gazoo Racing 86, the GR86, and that's important. We're gonna get into that into the shop later when Brian gets to the suspension. But for now, this is the all-new, yes, 86, now the GR86, the 2022 Toyota, and we're quite pleased with it. We're gonna get into more of that later. But exterior styling, let's just talk there. We get a lot of functional treatments in this new generation. This whole video, you're gonna hear about the evolution of the previous product, and that's what this is. We get that from exterior all the way to interior to underneath to engine, everything. Exterior wise though, you get a lot of functional aero, and I think everything is a little more sculpted. It's been working out. It just looks more sleek all throughout. The roof is a little bit lower for aero. This is the premium trim, so we also get the rear spoiler, which creates more drag or downforce, which is what we want. Everything's functional through and through with this thing. With the premium, you also get 18-inch rims and the better tires, and there's more to go around as well. With that though, let's turn it over to the interior, see what Brian has to do with the functional and evolution going on in there as well.
All right, time for the interior, and boy, there are some things to talk about in here. Starting with the cluster. You have a silhouette of a boxer engine on profile, like crankshaft in the middle, pistons shooting out, and when you start it up, you get a cool infographic that goes there. It's also now completely digital. With that, you get some cool, old on purpose looking font on the sides of the cluster. You can also get different modes. There is track mode, there's also sport mode, and then there's also a hidden, I'm gonna call it driver's mode. You press and hold traction control long enough, it turns everything off. Lane departure, blind spot monitoring, stability, traction, everything, and it gives you water temp, oil temp, and a massive tach and a lap timer. That's all you need. We have tested it. The driver assist programs are out of your way. It's just you and the machine. We love that. The rest of the interior. Let's compare this to something like an ND2 Miata, which we keep harkening back to and thinking about. For me, I fit in this car. I just don't in the Miata. As much as I love it, it's never gonna happen. I can actually live and drive in this thing. The seats are just as good as the old one, but you have more cup holders. You've got 4 seats and 5 cup holders. Yes, you can handle humans in the back seat, but not very big ones, so keep that in mind. And last but not least, the interior, you can tell, has a lot of matte black. There's not a lot of gloss in here. It tells you this thing's meant for the track. Even the screen has a matte gloss on it, so nothing reflects back in your eye when you're driving on track. We love that. And something else that tells you this thing's purpose, proper parking brake. With all that, let's go to the shop and talk about those purposeful things.
Welcome to the under the hood portion of the GR86. There's no torque dip. That's it. No, really, there's a little bit more to talk about than just that. The main thing is the torque dip is gone, and that's what we care about. We get 228 horsepower, and it's in a better delivery, so we don't have this spot where nothing's happening as you're revving it like the old version, and that's the main thing. It is now 2.4 liters instead of 2 liters because it's been bored out from 86 millimeters to 94 millimeters. That's it. What that means is it's the exact same engine size exterior the block is, and so it fits in the same spot, no problems, no compromises there. It's paired to an Aisin 6-speed unit, or Aisin. You let us know in the comments what that's supposed to be. This is the actual auto, and well, just don't get it. I know 70% of you will get it, and you're just wrong. I'm sorry. The best part is you get a torsion limited slip out back, and that's no matter what trim, what auto, manual, any of that, that's what you get, and that's the best. As far as fuel mileage goes, for those that actually carry a sports car, it's 25 combined, and well, that's about what we got. You can drive responsibly and get 32, 33 at highway speeds, or you can drive it like you're supposed to and get the 25 combined. That's what you really want to do. With that, let's get to Brian and see the suspension part, because that's the bigger story here in this car, and let's see what's going on.
All right, boys and girls, it's time for our favorite part, and that is the nuts and bolts. And we always start with the rubber on the show. And this guy runs on 18-inch Michelins. These are 215/40 18s, and as you can tell by the tread pattern, they are meant for business. These are the upgraded wheel and package that you get with the premium trim, which this car happens to be. They're quite light, they're quiet on the road, and they grip really well, especially with heat. We've had these on track. They are very forgiving. We like them a lot. Really the best all-around tire that you can have for this type of vehicle. So before we get into anything else too much, I want to talk about the Gazoo Racing specific things. This car is 50% stiffer than the previous one. That's a big deal. They design it with a new rear ring rear chassis design. And what that really is, they use a lot of hot stamped steel, high strength steel, and aluminum throughout to balance the car. And also the rear subframe section, the lower part of the car and the roof of the car basically are tied together with a new ring is what they're calling it. That makes a difference. We've driven the old car before and this thing feels much, much stiffer. I've made this joke before about other cars. This feels like it's milled out of one piece of billet aluminum. It's really, really stiff. We like that a lot. For those that are track junkies, that will make a difference down the road. Now, as we all know, this shares a lot with the BRZ. These are really the same car. The difference here is you get a steel knuckle on this car, whereas the Subaru keeps the aluminum knuckle. They also have different sway bar diameters in the front, and the rear sway bar is completely different between two cars. Part of the reason this is that way is Akio Toyota himself drove the car and said, we're not done yet, take it back, we're going to make it more fun to drive. That's what he did. This car understeers less at the limit. It will still be very balanced when you start to lose grip. The front will go half a second before the rear goes, but with a little bit of throttle input, you can walk it out and rotate the car still. It's not just this numb thing that pushes. We really, really like that. Now the trade-off is it rides a little bit worse than the BRZ on the road because of the stiffer sway bars, but that's really kind of negligible. If you buy this kind of car, you know what you're in for. Now, the design overall, McPherson strut in the front, rear steer, super simple, we've seen it before. In the rear, multi-link. It's a coilover design, it's not a divorce spring and shock. And the brakes are the exact same brakes from the previous generation. A 2-pot floating in the front, single pot in the rear floating as well. The car's light enough, just doesn't matter. It works just fine. 2,800 pounds, it works fine. So, all that covered, let's take it on the road and show you how good it is to drive.
All right, Brian. Enough shop talk.
Yep.
Although this isn't really designed for a straight line.
No.
Let's see what it does anyways.
Let's
Hit
do
it.
Woo, pinch a wheel spin. On cam, 7,000.
Makes a lot of noise.
Second gear. 60 miles an hour at red line. 0 to 60 in 7.22.
Hey, what's that got awful noise? Can you make it quieter? What is going on there?
Oh, there you go. Turn sport mode off.
Okay, let's start with the noise. What is going on with the noise?
There is just get it out of the way. This is not real noise. We all know that. That's normal in cars today. The reality is you can unplug this one in the corner.
So that'll go away, and then you just hear the real engine.
Right. No tuning needed, no modules to buy. You just pop that little panel off, unplug it.
Which is nice, but then there's also a downfall with the real noise. What's the real noise?
It's an NA Boxer. There's no turbo whoosh to go with it, and it's not like some VTEC fun sounding 4-cylinder.
Yeah, it's kind of fresh. But let's get down to, the car. It is quicker.
Yes,
than the old
it is.
one.
Yes, it's about a half a second quicker, both automatic and manual. So the rating from big magazines is about 6.5. Mm-hmm. If you get the manual, it's 5.8.
Wow, I mean, that's really good.
That's a big difference.
So, and we've talked off camera about this, but there's not very many cars left in the planet that the manual is quicker than the
faster.
auto.
Yes. Thank you, that still exists.
Which I don't know what that means. Does that mean the manual's that good or that the auto's that bad?
I'm not even going to step in that pool.
Okay.
All right. Let's not even get into that. Now, in all reality, this is an auto. We have tracked this with a manual. We've driven this with manual. Mm-hmm. We'll drop that footage in here. And let me tell you, that particular event where we're at, I drove that car, I pulled the data, I drove that car more than anything else available that day. Because I was having so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
And I was learning so much every lap.
Yeah.
It was making me a better driver.
Absolutely.
Now, we've lived with this for a week with auto.
Yes.
And I'm here to tell you, it makes no sense to buy this car with the auto.
Even though 70% of the buyers will buy it with the auto.
I don't understand it. I think you're better off with something like a 4-cylinder Mustang or Camaro for about the same money with a little more room and amenities.
Yeah, if you're getting an auto, why are you buying this car?
Why are you buying this car? Now, that being said, it's not terrible.
No.
There's no CVT here. It does have gears, and it's actually gear spacing's pretty good.
It's better than the old Scion TC.
No, you're right. But what I'm getting at is if you had to get the auto and you were set on this car, it's not terrible.
No,
it really isn't.
Right.
It's fine, and it's perfectly livable. Right. But get the manual if you can.
Okay, so we just did a straight line run, but that's not what this car's about, though.
No.
This car is about carving up corners, whether it's on the street or on the track.
Right.
And how does it do that task? I know you can already mention it with the track and how much you like to drive it, but I mean,
just beautifully. Let's just jump into it. I know where your head's already at. Indy 2 Miata and this.
Yep.
Those are the real competitors.
Yep.
And we'll wrap up our conclusion what I really think about that, them compared to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But driving wise, this is sharper.
Yes.
This is firmer. The chassis
There's less body
is
motion.
stiffer. There's no flex in the chassis at all. It feels like one piece of aluminum. It feels almost like an Alpha chassis GM car. It's really tight.
Yeah, it is very solid.
But with 18s, it rides very rough compared to the Miata.
Not that it rides bad.
No,
I don't want people to think this car rides bad.
I'm glad you made the distinction. The Miata is very soft, but it also, in my opinion, leans more than I would care for it to.
And to that point, though, what that means is, I think I called you after I drove this first drive. I called you and I said, if I was driving on the road and I was never going to track a car, I would probably go ND2. Right. But if I have ever going to track a car, even just a few times a year, this is the car to get, because this is the track car. Because the Miata, because you do all those body motions you're talking about, may feel more fun on a normal road, but if you're going to track it, you're going to have to do a lot of work.
You're immediately. You're fighting it the whole time.
Versus, what are you going to have to do to this to track it?
Nothing. Maybe pads and fluid.
That's probably what most people will do.
To any car you're going to track anyways. Right. But I'm blown away at how, and let's talk about steering between the two. How quick this thing turns in. I mean, it's just absolutely immediate. You think it, and you start to go, maybe I should pitch in, and the car's there. It just goes. The wheelbase is just right. It's like 104, something like that, which isn't as short as you would think it would be.
Right.
But the wheels and tires are out to the corners, and the car is small enough. The turn in is perfect. And it doesn't, when you do this, the car doesn't load up and then turn. It just turns.
It's just, right. There's no load. And I think that's the key to this car. When I drive this, what I think, and I keep going back to, is this is not a GT, this is not a pony car, this is not a muscle car.
No.
This is a true, or a roadster.
Not a roadster.
This is a true sports car.
That's the biggest difference. And unlike its competitors, it's on its own platform.
Right.
This is not a Z living on a G sedan platform. This is not a Mustang that shared a lot with an old Lincoln LS. This is not a Camaro that shares with a Cadillac ATS. This is its own platform. It has only one job to do, and it does it great.
Right. All right. With that, we're pretty much done the wrapping final comments. But let's see what else we got to say, because we got some objectives and subjectives to get to, and let's go check it out, because we're not going to do a hill test.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Brian, we want to bring facts to our viewers.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
And so we're going to talk about objectives versus subjectives. So objectively, that's just the numbers. Subjectively, what does it translate to?
What does it feel like?
Feel.
Right.
So objectively, Brian, it's 50% stiffer, and we all know things that need to be stiff.
Subjectively, I completely agree with that. It feels way stiffer than the previous car. And that one wasn't flaccid.
That's a good thing. Objectively, it makes 50 more horsepower.
Objectively or subjectively, but Dyno agrees.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
They've fixed the powertrain problem.
And objectively, it has more cup holders.
It has 5 of those puppies, only 4 seats to account for. Agreed.
All right. So, Brian, what is this car up against? It's in that high 20, low 30 range.
The fun car segment. Right?
There's a lot of fun cars in that segment.
Yeah.
Whether it's front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, what's it up against, and what would you get?
All right, I'm going to lay them all out there, because we've been off camera arguing for days about this. Because we talk about price point all the time. You've got this and Miata, obviously.
Yep.
Direct competitors in different ways, even though this is a coupe and that's a roadster. You have the front-wheel drive game, which is the Elantra N, the Veloster N, the GTI, the Honda Civic SI, not the Type R because it's too expensive, and now the Integra, although it's a little more, a couple thousand more if you get it with the A-Spec. That's really it. That's really kind of, I'm sure we're forgetting one somewhere, but those are the ones that come to our mind when we're thinking about it. I'm just going to, there's a couple ways to look at this.
Yep.
In terms of driver fun, it's this and the Miata. Simply as that.
Right. All those other cars are not specifically built just for this.
Right. The other cars are built on another existing platform and made fun. And they are great. The GTI is awesome. The inline Elantra is unbelievably great. I can't believe how good that car was. And it does more than this will. It has a real back seat. You can do, and that's the reality. You made a good point of the SI is really appealing because it's still fun to drive, but you can do the everyday stuff with it. These have some compromises.
Yeah.
And I'm stopping and going, it's not the same fun.
Right.
They're not the same thing. And so you're going to have to make a choice as a buyer. Do you really want the rotation of this car on a back road? Do you want the taut chassis? So then I think you weed the rest out and go, if you're looking just for fun, those are all good. But if you're looking for a sports car, you're down to Miata and this. And what do you say?
Well, I think you can't go wrong with either one of those.
Right.
I don't want to punt here, but it really depends on your size.
Right.
It depends on what you want to do each day. It depends on how much you actually want to track. If you want a track machine or an everyday driver. Not that you couldn't everyday driver both of them or track either one of them.
Well, something everyday driver.
It just depends on what you're wanting to do. Here's what I think. I think this car for $30,000, around that $30,000 mark, is going to be hard to beat with anything.
I agree. And now that you punted it, I'm going to answer it for everyone. I cannot own a Miata. I'm just too tall for it. So for me, this makes it. The roads I drive on daily are not bad enough that this becomes rough. You have some back roads that are rough enough that this became less fun than the Miata because it doesn't have the shock travel to absorb it. That's real for you. I can see why you would buy a Miata, and that's why I need this for me.
Right.
Last question: if you had to get an 86 or a BRZ, what flavor would you get?
See, that one's a tough one. So the BRZ maybe is a little softer and a little. We talked about it has more understeer, but it's going to be so slight. I don't know unless you tracked them back to back. Would you even be able to tell? I don't know.
Right.
To me, it would almost come down to availability, but I would lean towards this one.
That's a fair point. I would go towards this one exactly how it's spec but manual, because the nose looks better than the BRZ. Just a subjective opinion. Subjectively, it looks better, and also at the limit, I do find that understeer probably more than you would, because I go looking for it all the time. I would appreciate it not doing that where the Subaru will.
Fair enough. And I'm also, here's what I'm really looking forward to though. This is the starting point for the second generation for these cars, the GR86 or BRZ.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what they do in future model years, updates, brake packages, handling packages.
Dampers for sure.
I'm really looking forward to the Hyconia edition.
Yeah,
basically because I want green and the gold wheels.
Right.
So anyways, looking forward to that.
Can't wait for it. Thank you guys for watching. Drop comments below if you have any questions or think we could just boneheaded got something wrong. And stay tuned, we have more trucks coming. Don't worry, we've had a long run of cars recently, which we
This is Texas Truck Channel, right?
This is Texas Truck Channel.
Okay.
We've enjoyed it, but we're getting back to the bread and butter. Thank you for staying tuned. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.